On the 7th of June, U.S. Secretary of State Tony Blinken announced to the world that the United States was going to take measures restricting, imposing visa restrictions on those undermining the peaceful resolution of the crisis rocking Cameroon, especially the southwest and northwest region. And we have this evening decided to look at this decision by the United States of America, especially the new government of this nation, vis-a-vis the crisis in Cameroon. We are going to be discussing this with our panelists who are in the house today. We are already in the company of our consultant, Apostle Lambi Valentine Gua, who is seated in the house with us. Good evening, welcome. Good evening, Leo. Good evening, Cameroonians. Good evening, viewers of Prime Hour. It's a joy to be here today again. At least we are getting positive news from the United States of America, and we believe by the grace of God this crisis will soon come to an end. Okay. Also sitting in for Andrew Atemebako, who just announced this evening that he was not going to be here with us for reasons beyond his control. We have Tamai Travis. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, you. Good evening to the President of the Republic. Good evening, Baba Juro. Good evening to the Minister of Public Works. And of course, good evening to those in the northern southwest region. We are expecting Tayon Elvis, who just indicated that he's caught in traffic. He's going to be joining us shortly, as well as Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel. They are on their way coming. I'll start with you, Apostle Lambi Valentine Gua. Your first reaction to this outing by U.S. Secretary of State Tony J. Blinken.
Well, it's encouraging. At least concern has been shown to the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon, contrary to the report of the Norwegian Refugee Department that said it was the most neglected crisis worldwide. I think with the interest of the United States focusing their attention until the Secretary General tweeted saying that they are interested in bringing peace and to bring those who are promoting violence in Cameroon to book, and also restricting them visas from entering the United States. I think that is a very giant stride. It's a very, very good step taken so far, because it's not just that we condemn this time around. Measures are
henceforth of the United States.
Well, when conflict like this happen, international community, allies and friends of the country affected, before they react, they must analyze a series of actions, looking at possibly their investment, their policy in place, how does it affect their nation, and how is it going to affect their nation. If they come in with options, do they have options? What are the options they have on the table? They have option A, should there be targeted sanction? If targeted sanctions are imposed, what would be the effect on the economy, and what would be the effect on their military overseas? If they come in with the UN dialogue with the UN to have it on the agenda, what could be the effect of the ally that they have, like France and other allies? Now, when we look at this, it therefore gives us a picture to understand that the options that Trump, the former administration had, U.S. administration had, was not for direct intervention, was also not for restriction, and they had what was known in the late 1920s as the policy of a kind of isolationism in terms of foreign policy. But the Biden administration, I think they now need to redefine their policy, and they have redefined their policy to say, okay, we have options. This is not the first time that U.S. is voicing out sanctions, visa restrictions. Remember that 2 weeks ago we had a similar action that was taken in Ethiopia and in Eritrea regarding the war which is ongoing in the Tigray region. And what happened there was the difference between this one that has been announced in Cameroon and that of the Tigray region against Ethiopia government and Eritrean government is that names were called for Ethiopia, names not like they said, okay, Mr. AB, but they actually articulated by stating that government ministers and former ministers in both Eritrea and Ethiopia will not be given visa based on the fact that they are not in favor of de-escalating the conflict in the Tigray region. In the case of Cameroon, we have not been told by this communique that government or former government officials or separatist officials or non-separatists are to be held or to be given restriction. So you see the difference with Cameroon there is that they are still to define the policy, and like they are testing the waters, and everybody, I think I like this position because it indict everybody, because people are kind of confused. Is it me? Am I there? So it's a policy that tells them that you have to reshape what you have to shape what you're talking about, because today you don't know whether it is this minister or it's not this minister. I remember when these sanctions are giving restrictions, it's not only to their families, it's not only to themselves, but their families and loved ones, because your family, the international community recognized that your family, if you are given a visa restriction, you could send your family to do business. So your entire household sometimes is restricted. So basically, this is just the first step. A lot of innovation, as we're told, will be coming in the days ahead. Okay.
The communique actually states that the United States deeply concerned by the continued violence in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon. How concerned has the United States been since the advent of the Anglophone crisis?
Well, to me,
so it's taking a different turn.
Yes, it's taking a different turn this time around, because initially we saw the Congress wrote warning the separatists and the government to come to a consensus and then solve the problem. Later on, the U.S. House of Senate, the Senate wrote also. I think amongst all the international bodies, we saw
Undersecretary who called for people who are engaged in violent activities to beware that they were no longer going to be supporting.
Good. That is, you discover that since from the time of Tibonagi, America has been involved in the Anglophone crisis, and I must say that they are the only international body or country that have developed so much interest in the Anglophone crisis. Second, Canada, who also asked for the Francophonie to give them an opportunity, and the Commonwealth, in order to see how they can bring a permanent peace to what is happening in Cameroon. And with respect to what the U.S. has been doing so far, I think diplomacy may be slow, but it is sure. Diplomacy may be slow, but it is sure. It is taking. He was interested in what is happening in the southern Cameroon, and equally what is happening in Ethiopia. And so far, he's not been up to a year in power. He's already taken measures both in Tigray, whom he said in his inaugural speech, and also in the southern Cameroon's crisis that is taking place in Cameroon. So I think Anthony Blinken's approach to the crisis, and from his inaugural speech, he's meaning what he says and he's saying what it means.
Okay. We have just been joined by Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel. He is the National President of the Reform Party. Is this also a victory for you guys, members of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations? You told us some months back here in this studio that the United States was going to swing into action.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, Mr. The Kangaroo Man, Professor Lamde, and Tambay, and our dear televiewers. Well, I would not consider that a victory, because we knew it was going to come. We have been warning people to make hay while the sun shines, but the warmongers thought that they were going to have a field day till the end of the season. So, well, I think they should start looking for their blankets, because there are colder days ahead for them. This is just the beginning, because when you look at the sanctions, the possible sanctions that are lined up in that resolution 684, this is just the beginning. They should eventually expect to be ferried to the International Court of Justice, because International Criminal Court, because you cannot commit what we see them committing and you expect to go scot-free. So anyway, we thank the American government for swinging into action. We state that, well, we want this crisis to come to an immediate end as quickly as possible, so that Cameroonians can enjoy some measure of peace. Today we are not having peace. We are living in pieces, and we think that if more pressure were brought to bear on the people who are funding this crisis, then the solution to this crisis will be put on the table as fast as possible.
Okay, the kangaroo man is here with us. Good evening, Fa Ebisatayong. Yes, many televiewers have been asking, where is the kangaroo man? The kangaroo man is here with us this evening. I'll continue reading the outing of Anthony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State. He says that we continue to call for both the separatist armed groups to end the violence and engage in a dialogue without preconditions to peacefully resolve the crisis. Both sides are asked to engage in dialogue without preconditions. How does it work out?
Well, you have to understand that since the release of that statement from the U.S. State Department, you will get to understand that many have misinterpreted it to work for their favor in one way or the other.
Yes, everybody is saying that it is in our favor.
In our favor. And I think that it will be good for us to teach Yaoundé some diplomatic lessons so that they should understand that it's not just a matter of ranting, but it's a matter of things that are for sure. But I must thank the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation, in which we are all, both of us here on this platform, are members. I think Barrister is also part of the member, is a member. I want to thank the advisory committee as well as the steering committee, who have quite been working day in, day out with the communication committee, where I also belong, to ensure that things happen. Now, you see, Mr. Leo, there are some things that we will be moving on, but we also know that other factors, other persons have equally played their own role at the backstage in one way or the other. You remember that we have several groups that are doing diplomatic moves at the background, and so it has to get to somewhere. Now, when we look at that kind of outing, and you realize that people have been ranting, I was surprised that even government officials do not understand diplomacy at all. Maybe it's because they understand and they refuse to put it in practice, or for one reason or the other. Now, if you look at that statement, Mr. Liu, and the first thing I told many of those sycophants in Yaoundé, that you don't need to jubilate because you think that it involves in equal terms the both parties involved in the conflict. No. It involves them, yes, but the greater portion of that diplomatic statement holds more on the person who has a knife and a yam to decide if the conflict should end or not. Of course, the regime barons are at the center stage. Now, when you look at it, Mr. Leo, based on that statement, it tells you obviously that both parties are supposed to be there. But now, to be involved in resolving the conflict, the question now is, who has the leeway? The state in any government, if you go even to Cambodia, you describe the FARC rebels themselves were equally in line with the government. The government took a bold step to ensure that the over 50 years war had to come to an end. So any government that considers another weaker party as a rebel is supposed to initiate. That's why we said earlier that the kangaroo system of what they called the national dialogue, which was a CPDM family affair, was not in line with that. Some sycophants in Yaoundé told me that, no, Yaoundé had tried best because they've been calling for the separatist fighters to come. But we asked them, under what condition were you calling them? Did you respect the principles of conflict resolution? Oh, no. So if you did not respect that, it means that you did not call for a dialogue, but you called for a family meeting, which is considered null and void in the international community as far as conflict resolution is concerned. Now, if you look at that statement, Mr. Liu, we have told several sycophants in Yaoundé, just like King of what Barrister Ashu is saying, that they need to get more blankets because the heat is on. And as I said, if you look at it, between when the statement came in and as today, I have underground information in the US that most of the sycophants in Yaoundé have contacted their lawyers out there in the US of A to change most of their belongings into their brothers or relatives' names because they know what is coming. But of course, that process cannot go because the US is not a fool. Before they come to this statement, Mr. Lee, you understand we have a kangaroo parliament. We have several committees in it. And when these committees sit, whatever they decide has no importance except it to the decide. But in the West democratic system, once a committee, be it security committee, be it foreign committee, start taking a decision, no matter once they agree unanimously, that decision is transferred into the government, which is now being used, which is now being transferred as a policy. Because these things do not start today, Mr. Leo. Remember, we have been here on platform several times talking about the US Congress, and some sycophants still from the members of parliament, they said Yaoundé is singing a song, or that US is singing a song and they're interfering. Now, the time for us to talk about who is interfering has already come. Okay. So that is how it is. I'll be coming back because we need to teach Yaoundé diplomatic lessons this today because the heat is on and me man no run. Understand? Man no run.
Okay, good evening to you, Gilberto Salu, Pa Denis, good evening to you, Chisap, Mark Amos Andy, and to you, my lovely sister Mbong Jefoy Ngu Tamufo. I'm glad to note that you are watching. And also to you, my brother watching from the United States, Tom Jarvis, Fondon Richard. Good evening to you, and all of you, Fondon Richard, I always get your recommendations. I'm glad. Yes, Tamai Jarvis, there is this issue of we want both sides to engage in dialogue without preconditions. Is it possible? Because on the one hand, they would say we want to talk separation. On the other hand, they will say we don't want to talk separation. How do we find a common ground?
Break time is over. That was what we saw. It means break time is over. Now they don't have no, there is nothing like with one preconditions, we don't want preconditions. At this point in time, the US is telling you that you must dialogue. Mr. Alio, if you look at the outing of the US Secretary of State, remember that when Trump came to power, Rex Tillerson, the then Secretary of State, did not establish a US policy. US is ruled by policies and procedures, and sometimes if you don't lay down a policy, it's difficult for a government to operate. Now, when Mike Pompeo took over power, replaced Rex Tillerson, Mike Pompeo still did not introduce a policy framework under which U.S. government can fully monitor or react as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. Biden administration now with Blinken, he has set in a policy. What he did was to set in a policy, an official policy, telling the Cameroon's government and the separatist fighters that, hey, there will be consequences now. If you react like this, know that there will be consequences. It's not like there may be consequences. It is clear that there will be consequences. Now, asking the question if both parties can come on the table, it is the factual. Whether they go to heaven or go to hell, they will sit on the table. Whether they like it or not, whether the government of Cameroon or the non-state armed groups like it or not, they will dialogue on the table. But the question now with preconditions or not preconditions, it now stemmed down from the policy of conflict resolution. FI actually articulated something which is clear, that in this kind of conflict where you see that a nation, a state is fighting a rebel, the state must take that step ahead to follow conventions which bind that state. For example, Cameroon is a signatory to numerous conventions. There's no state angles, they are not signatories to conventions. So that's why you see the non-state angles cannot take the matter to the UN Security Council. They can only lobby friendly nations or partner groups to take the matter up to Security Council. But the state of Cameroon has that power to take the matter to Security Council because it is bound by conventions. Now, on the issue of dialogue without precondition or condition, the state of Cameroon understands the need of dialogue and notes that for the conflict to be resolved, dialogue must take place without preconditions, meaning that they must go on the table and dialogue and discuss with these people. But the question now is, if the state of Cameroon decide that we want to dialogue in Cameroon and we don't want to dialogue in the US, they are putting preconditions. If the non-state armed group says we don't want to dialogue in Cameroon, want to dialogue somewhere, they are putting preconditions. Now, what is the area, the lowest common multiple, what we call the LCM, where all of them need to look at? The lowest common multiple now will be relating them back to the Geneva Convention and on conflict resolution, what US is saying. And what are these principles? That dialogue must be initiated by the superior power and taken to a neutral venue where both parties can talk without problems or without the weaker party feeling like they are going to be intimidated or they may be intimidated. In this regard, what does it mean? It means that Yaoundé should take this negotiation out of Cameroon and see where they both can discuss. If we look at what happened in Eritrea, similar dialogue was called into place. If we look at what happened in Ethiopia itself when Abiy Ahmed came to power, similar dialogue was called into place. People dialogue out of the conflict zone. You cannot be dialoguing within the conflict zone with a country, with a state or a government that has proven beyond any reasonable doubt that they don't keep to their word. If you look at what is binding the principle of dialogue, for example, when this conflict started, we have a whole lot of professors in Yaoundé, within and out, that were talking about resolving this conflict. The state of Cameroon organized a major national dialogue, but forgot about 5 key principles of conflict resolution. The first was think before you react. Cameroon government reacted before thinking by stating that there's no Anglophone crisis here, there's no Anglophone crisis, this or that. The second step is listening. You must listen to key stakeholders. The state of Cameroon and the non-state and the lawyers probably did not listen to each other. Not now, when the government was saying this other guys were saying this. The second issue is assuring a fair process. Both parties did not assure a fair process. The fair process in this major national dialogue that ended 2 years ago was simply, where should the dialogue take place? Who are those stakeholders? If we bring in Yaoundé, will this happen? They did not. The next aspect is attack the problem, not the people. But we see people are being attacked and not the problem. We feel like when we attack people, we attack ministers, we attack non-state angles, we attack journalists, we feel like we are resolving the problem. So in nutshell, what we refer these people into that dialogue will be the principle of the Geneva Convention and principle governing dialogue or conflict resolution, and that they will be forced to go on the table.
Apostle Ambe Valentin Ngwa, the statement reads, it is important that children can attend school and that humanitarian aid can be delivered to where they are most needed. Is it here the United States is clearly saying that those not involved in this conflict should be clearly spared?
Yes, I think, you know, if you follow, America has 4 foreign policies. First is to protect the United States and Americans. Secondly is to advance democracy, human rights, and a certain level of freedom. Then to protect American diplomats and all American civil servants and personnel that work out of America. That's their focus. So if you look at it critically, human rights is one of the priorities of the American foreign policy. And this human right is global. It has nothing to do with race or color or any people. So if you hear them making emphasis of children have to go to school, that is the basic right of any child. According to UNESCO Charter, education is a right to every child. So if at all they are violating that right, they are infringing on one of U.S. foreign policies by trying to jeopardize the education of children. So if at all you see they are laying emphasis in that area, they are trying to point a finger on every individual who by any means is contributing to the factor or to the fact that people are not going to school or people are not going to school. You must be able to understand that that statement is referring to a lot of people. It has nothing to do with a particular person. It has to do with those who are influencing children not to go to school, those who are carrying acts of insecurity to children not to go to school, those who are suspending school activities in one way or the other. That is what that statement is saying here. They can be speaking to you. Diplomacy is very funny. They will speak to you in an indirect way. In that statement, they are telling us in Cameroon that if you know you are part of the persons who contribute for children not to go to school, that particular phrase is pointing at you. You should be very, very careful, because when they are coming, they will come for those who have influenced the how do I put it? That stopped schools from going on. So if we find ourselves in that shoe, know that this foreign policy is coming with a double-edged sword. It's going to be touching
humanitarian workers are supposed to
equally, they are supposed to circulate, and who are the persons that block humanitarian workers from carrying out their activities? All those things will be sorted out, and you must understand that America will not launch this statement without carrying out proper investigations. They have everything on ground before you hear them making this statement. They know who they are targeting, they know who they are directing those statements to, and they know who they are coming for. Because much time has been given, and appropriate time has been given for the two parties to resolve the problem by themselves. And based on what the U.S. Congress wrote, the U.S. Senate wrote, the U.S. Undersecretary for Africa also said, those are periods where they gave Cameroon government the opportunity and the separatists to resolve the crisis. While they were taking their facts on ground, you know, human rights kept advancing. Human rights kept advancing facts on what was happening in Cameroon. The atrocity of the separatists, the atrocity of the government, and all these facts have been assembled so far far, and now when you hear this statement is made, is based on the facts gathered for so many years. Secondly, they have given the people of Cameroon and the separatists enough opportunity and chance to solve the problem by themselves. Now that you have refused not to hit to the command or the demand of the United States, they themselves now are stepping into the matter. And if you hear them making statement that we want dialogue without preconditions, they are telling those who have always put conditions before dialogue that this time around you are not going to have a field day. This time around you are going to operate according to the satisfaction of both parties. You are not coming as if you are coming to impose on individuals. So anybody who has lived within the 5 years of this crisis should be able to read that communique and know what is being addressed to the separatists and know what is being addressed to the government.
Okay, you are saying that okay, there are statements that directly indict the separatists and
of course the government. Both parties are involved in those statements. If you have critically observe and follow the crisis, the U.S. Secretary of State is not addressing a particular party. The U.S. Secretary of State is launching a complaint based on facts gathered by different personalities and certain institutions in America. For instance, the U.S. Senate wrote, when they wrote, they gave a lot of facts on ground what has been happening, and in those their communiques, they also warned the government and they warned the separatists. The Congress did the same thing. The U.S. Undersecretary of State also came and did the same thing. So you discover those parties involved are implicated. But if you discover, if you have followed all this crisis all through, you read that communique, you will know very well that this statement is going to this person. It's just like an examination. It's said before you will know what to answer. They will choose the question, but you will know what to answer. So based on the analysis I go through on that communique, it's certain that everybody is involved.
That children have to go to school, but it goes further to say we urge all relevant stakeholders in Cameroon and in the diaspora to engage constructively and seek a peaceful resolution to the crisis. Is this where you people are coming in? It's time for people to listen to stakeholders like the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation, both in Cameroon and out of Cameroon.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. You see, we have to thank the Secretary of State for making certain things very clear. The first thing that I see as being very clear in that is communique is the parties. Who are the parties? Because many people should tell us, oh, it's a Cameroon internal affair. Now we are very sure that it's dawning on them that the parties are separatists and the government. So we know the parties. We know who are the parties. Now, they say any person who encourages violence, we want the war to end. They say go to the negotiating table. Unfortunately, we don't have any negotiations ongoing. There are no negotiations ongoing, and people who have been used to organizing Jangi House meetings and lie to the public and pretending that those are negotiations, I hope that this time they will learn their lessons. They should not come up with any such Jangi House meeting anymore, because this time around we are supposed to have a real negotiation that should concern all the stakeholders.
Of course.
We shall start thinking about the Swiss talks. The Swiss talks, or maybe some other body, or some other body that may come up. Why not the CDN? Why not the CDN? The CDN can come up with negotiations between the parties and say, okay, we want to act as a mediator.
Very possible.
Very possible.
Yeah, but when they say they should engage in constructive action to seek a peaceful resolution to the crisis.
Thank you.
Constructively.
Thank you. Constructive action. When they tell you that children should go to school, that means that the war should end. The constructive action here means stop the fighting. Because without you stopping the fighting, you can talk of no peace. Children cannot go to school. You cannot do anything. Stop the fighting first. Stop the fighting first. Without precondition. Without precondition. Don't tell us that the state cannot stop. Sir, stop without precondition. It may be the one the Americans will tell them before they will stop. Stop it. Stop the fighting. Because there is no more question of big brother, small brother. Stop the fighting. Peace has to reign now. And if you don't want the peace, it will come to you. You either start doing it yourself or you will be forced to do it. So the preconditions that were being put by certain people, who are we talking to? Who is who? No, sir, it's finished. We know who we'll be talking to. We know the parties. Please stop. We know all the actions you are carrying out in the field. Stop them. Make sure that when the dialogue starts, you cooperate fully. You cooperate fully. Otherwise, you will be brought to book. You see, I said earlier, we know the catalog of sanctions that are awaiting them. We know. This is just the first step. Others will be queued up. So if they don't want to move,
yeah, but
they will be made to move.
Sanctions by who?
By the US.
Who has issued sanctions there?
Okay, the US is going to.
Who has issued sanctions? You know, the US has its network of countries that are supporting it. Yes. International coalition led by the US. So don't bother.
Okay. The statement states in clear terms that we condemn those who undermine peace through engaging in or inciting violence, human rights violations and abuses, and threats against advocates for peace, humanitarian workers. Who are these persons? Because that is the crux of the matter. We are restricting, we are restricting visa. Possibilities. But who are these persons now?
Now, Leo, let me come back to tell you exactly. Let me give you an in-depth of what that means, because you are asking to know exactly who are the persons. Now, in the first place, when we hear visa restriction, now the first thing is that when you talk about visa restriction, the man who is in the US does not need visa to go to US. Point number one. It simply means that anybody out of US is that one who needs visa to get into US. That's where it comes first. That's why I said that it's so diplomatic that Yaoundé, they need to get up from sleep. Because I said this thing weighs more, 70% on Yaoundé regime. You have lieutenants of colonels, generals, administrators and all like, who are in a list as far as this entire Wahala is concerned. It is a reality. If you look at after the Rwandan genocide, there were colonels, there were captains, there were mayors, even who were involved in the genocide, who were picked up after that. But they thought that they were going scot-free. So in this issue of visa restriction, first things first, before America comes out with this kind of statement, after several lobbies from Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation and other parties concerned, one thing is for sure, a detailed study has already been done. When you look at that statement, when they say for concerning parties involved, they know already the parties. I repeat, the US knows the people concerned. And the funny thing is that if US can know the people, and then you, your own regime, you say you don't know who to dialogue with, it means that you are kidding. So at the end of all of this, those concerned, we have two main parties involved. Now, it weighs more, as I said to you, because there's an upper party, or there's a bigger party that has the knife and the yam to decide if the thing should come to an end or not. Now, on the aspect of what is transpiring on the ground, we also understand that there are what we call facts gathering on the ground as I speak. It did not start today. It started since the start of the crisis, whereby we have what we call propaganda, which is on the move. For example, probably a non-state armed actor could put on a uniform and carry an action purporting to be military. And military could decide. We have several cases where military disguises with unclaimed hairs and everything to storm an area, probably disguising as a non-state armed actors to get information, and sometimes, you know, in the course of crossfire, they are involved in one or two things. And so the atrocities in the way that we have propaganda in the whole issue. Now, in the course of this, when as investigations are currently going on, with some facts already gathered, clean and clear, it will become an issue that while we move on both sides, now those who are charged, who are involved directly in carrying out the acts, be they on the side of the government or on the other side, will automatically have to come in as individuals, I repeat, as individuals, to answer for their crimes alleged to have been committed.
What we have to understand, like my sister, Foy Jimbong out there is saying, is that restrictions are already effective, eh?
Not effective, yeah.
He says that I am establishing a policy imposing visa restrictions on individuals who are believed to be responsible for, which means that there are individuals who are believed to be responsible as we speak. It's
already enforced. That's why I said that. That's why I said that I have first-hand information in the US where some of the attorneys were called on by the people here to start working on if they could, because this is the first step, Mr. Leo. And when the step comes, we keep on look at the case of Salai law firm. When he was carrying out that, obviously he knew he thought that it will work probably in their favor. And these are some of the other attorneys I'm talking about, who are currently, as we speak now, trying to secure the properties of the other persons or of the parties who are here, because the parties, Leo, they know themselves already. I'm sorry to tell you, the parties I'm talking about, as Yaoundé is watching me, the individuals, they have already been hinted, because they know that it is end time for them. We are not debating on that.
Okay. Good evening to you, Tebe Tetu, and to you, Bate. Label Eddie, good evening to you, Nde Livinus and Jacques Chilgo. To you, Love Kinton Cynthia. Mankind, good evening to you, Mbo Lexus and Neba Nelson. Echi Benji, Lofo William, good evening to you, Quincy Derek Fu. And to you, David and Chamba. And Arnold Fokwen, good evening to you. Chris Mutale, and to you, Uchiba Chondu Nelson. Eno Edwin, good evening to you. Enene Alain, Emmanuel Ekpomban, good evening to you. All of you watching us on social media. But that is the big question now. Are many persons on both camps now very uncertain of the fact that they may be key targets?
I like the ambiguity,
because seemingly everybody's trying
that's
to
what
shift.
I'm saying. I like the ambiguity of this outing, because if names were put in place, people will say, thank God I am safe, thank God, and it will give them that legitimacy to continue with illegal actions. The fact that it is ambiguous, nobody knows exactly who is involved, is a good thing. Remember that when we talk about visa restriction, we get people celebrating that, hey, I will not have to, thank God I am not going to the US, or that the US on separatist leaders will tell you that, well, thank God I am not coming to Cameroon anytime soon. But remember this, Mr. Liu, that it is not only the government as many people are seeing it. I want now to paint the other side of the picture, like, because some persons were saying that, no, we are talking as though it's only the government. It's not. This is what happened, Mr. Liu. The separatists did not sign any international convention to uphold principles of war and Geneva Conventions, but they are principles that bind them to their actions, which is separate from state affair. For example, they carry out actions. They cannot be judged as a nation, but they can be judged as individual who has violated human rights or who has committed crimes against humanity. And if a nation like Cameroon is not a signatory to ICC or other conventions, there's what we call there is a commission that has been formed, and that commission, which is from, I've forgotten the name of that commission, but there's a commission that's from, like it was from in Burundi, which brings parties together and judge them to say to pay for them to. Yes, they're good. That's it. Now when that tribunal is called up, it's called up for people who are not signatories to some of these conventions. So when this conflict started, I hear some government officials are saying that Cameroon is not a signatory to this, is not a signatory to that, is not a signatory to this, but there is a tribunal. A tribunal is called up for countries that are not signatories to international conventions, but are bound by principles of the United Nations. Now, the truth is Cameroon a member of the United Nations? Yes. Is Cameroon a member of this, that? Yes. Now, this is what happened. I was talking about the impact now on the separatist camp. When we talk about precondition, some people feel like when the separatists or the non-state angle says we don't want to dialogue in Yaoundé, is precondition. No, that's not precondition. That is the dialogue process. Precondition simply means that I will not come on that table if you don't talk this, you don't talk that, you don't talk this, you don't talk that. That is precondition. But if somebody tells you my safety is not guaranteed, I cannot come to a point A, it is not precondition. It is simply a process which engages in dialogue. Now, if you both agree that, okay, the area in which this dialogue is called upon is not suitable for the safety of Mr. A is not guaranteed, then you move to another area. We have seen preconditions. Some separatists are saying that if it's not independent, nothing else. If it's not this, nothing else. This is what will happen. There are two categories of punishment. Those who are not Cameroonian, who are Americans, the non-state armed groups who are already Americans, who have the American nationality, they will not be affected by the State Department. The State Department will not affect them in terms of policies, but they will be affected by the Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security. It is that department that prop American citizens who finance armed group overseas. Now it is the Department of Homeland Security, upon recommendation from the State Department, because if State Department can realize that we are struggling to to resolve a conflict in a continent, because the State Department is in charge of policy out of America, foreign policies, while the Homeland Security is in charge of internal security and American citizens in America sponsoring terrorism. Now, if the State Department, like Rex Tillerson have said, Blinken have said that, okay, we have realized that Mr. A in America is supporting an armed conflict in Cameroon, and we have called that this party should come on the table. Mr. A is not reacting, and Mr. A is selling guns to Cameroon, contrary to this. Homeland Security then take that action. This is what will happen. Those who are saying that they don't want dialogue based on the fact that it's independent or nothing else, and when that dialogue will call up and they don't come on that table, this is what will happen. The Homeland Security will work on their case. Those who are Cameroonians, who definitely are not Cameroonians, who are Cameroonian but are living in the US, what will happen is they are likely to be deported and judged in Cameroon. For the Cameroon government officials, this is what will happen. If at one point in time they refuse to go on the dialogue table, they refuse to adhere on the dialogue principles, this is what may happen to them. Targeted sanction in terms of their assets, their properties, and when you take their properties and some of their assets. Another issue now is US start lobbying with Canada, which is a friendly nation, that okay, impose their own sanction. You feel like you may want to run to Canada, Canada imposes. You may want to run to this other nation, imposes. At one point in time, you are caught between where to come back on that table. So there is no place to run for both parties. There is no place to run for Cameroon government. There is no place to run for the separatist armed group. The only place for them now is, let's ask ourselves, can we go to Nigeria and talk? Can we go to Ghana and talk? Can we go to Swiss and talk? And when we talk about talk, what are we going to talk about?
Okay. I want you to react to the outing of Thibault Nagy. He says that pleased to see the U.S. government impose visa sanctions on those responsible for continuing violence in Cameroon's Anglophone regions. As I've said in all my remarks, neither side can win through violence. Wish Biya and secessionists would both recognize this and end the suffering. To tie with what you are saying, that both sides are clearly
yes, if you look at the communique, for somebody who has critically followed this crisis from the very beginning, that communique implicates the separatists as well as the government, even though the statements are not tag separatists or this one tag government. The statement there is implicating the different activities. There are some activities that are undeniably actions of separatists, and there are also activities that are undeniably the actions of the government. So I'm sure the U.S. is coming in between more as a mediator to save the interests of the common man. Because the two persons in question that the U.S. is attacking are the people who are promoting this violence. There are people from the side of the government who do not want the war to cease because of their personal interests. Likewise, on the other side. Now, these two elephants are fighting. The man in between is caught in between the crossfire. And since United Nations, one of its foreign policies is that they should protect human rights. I'm sure their primary objective stepping into this crisis is to protect human rights. There are people who are neither for the separatists nor for the government. They are the ones who are caught in between the crossfire. And that is what I think is dragging the interest of the United Nations, the United States. If you look at the case of Papua New Guinea, they had their crisis in Bougainville. Bougainville is one of the areas in Papua New Guinea where that gave 70%, I mean 70% of the resources that sustained the nation from Papua New Guinea came from this little community. This community started demanding for secession, and then there was a long war between the state of Papua New Guinea and the Bougainville people, which influenced Australia to block the sea supply of food to this part of Bougainville. But you see, they brought a division among the separatists for some time, but they divided. After some time, they came back to their senses and started fighting. What happened was that it was New Zealand, not the United Nations. United Nations came to that environment, and then they said they want to make that place a UN trust territory. After some time, the thing continued. The war did not stop. It was New Zealand that came in between, stopped the crisis, and then conducted a referendum. The referendum was conducted, and the people, 98% of Bougainville people voted for secession. And when they voted for secession, they gave them 20 years to live in between the Papua New Guinea and themselves to see if the people can change. In 2019, after 20 years, this 2019, the people live for the 20 years. They want secession completely. They want secession. But now they say they will give them dual nationality. Since they have lived for so long, which you can move into Papua New Guinea and move to Bougainville without having contradiction. What am I trying to communicate here? The United States is coming here not as a UN. is coming as a body whose foreign policy is interested in the well-being of individuals. That's human rights. And I'm sure it was on the premise of that particular human rights focus of their foreign policy that is pushing them to come to Cameroon now and enter in between the government and the secessionists. And if I can tell with all sincerity, they are not just coming in favor of a particular team. They are coming here to make sure that the both parties traumatizing the common man should be brought to book. Recently, United States gave visa sanctions to Uganda. Ugandan general came out and said he will live and die in Uganda. And if you look at it, they gave the visa sanctions to Uganda. They did not mention no individuals, but the military general was fast to come out. Why? They said they mismanaged the elections that came up during Bobby Wine and Museveni. Yeah, Robert Kyagulanyi, who is Bobby Wine. That visa restriction came. It was a general respondent. That is to tell you that if they say they are going to restrict visas, there are two things we have to put in consideration here. The persons in questions whom they say they are at the diaspora influencing the activities here, they don't need visa. The guys in the bush who are carrying guns for security, they don't need visa. Who is in need of visa in this case? That is what we have to understand. Who are the persons also who say children should not go to school? Who are the persons? From what we have gathered here, we know the people that have been influencing the no school campaign. The government of the United States is also addressing that thing to them. That's why I say, if you have followed the crisis very well, the statements are coded, but they are targeted to particular individuals. Now, if these two persons are not smart enough to discover the potency of those statements and they continue the activities, the government of America will come and pick these two elephants fighting and hit their head while the common man is saved.
Yeah, because we are going to look later on, but some persons would say, he says it is targeting both sides, but the separatists, they will say that they don't need a visa to come to Cameroon. And then some government officials would also say, but we have other better destinations. We could go to Russia and China and the like. What am I going to do in America? Is it saying that it may start here and later on move to targeted sanctions?
Mr. Liu,
I beg.
Okay, just conclude.
Yeah. Let me conclude. This is when you hear they say they are giving visa sanctions. America is like a cluster of so many nations. That statement that he's speaking like this, at least 50 other nations are saying that same statement. So don't be surprised that you want to go to America, you are blocked. You want to go to France, you are blocked, because that single statement has wings and branches, tentacles. So we should be very careful.
They are going to engage. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Leo, I beg to differ a bit, because we may be tempted to think that Cameroonians who are in the diaspora don't need visas. That's an overstatement, because if somebody is targeted and is in the United States, I pray you don't leave the United States, because if you leave, you will not come back. You won't go back there. Those of them who think that they don't need visas, they are fooling themselves.
They are really targeted.
If you are targeted and you leave the US, you will not be able to go back there. That is what it means. When you leave, you go out, they won't give you the visa to come back. So it is concerning everybody. And those who are in the bushes, who are fighting in the bushes, they are as well concerned. If the US has your name, then you will not be able to travel to the US. And as you were saying, we are in fact dealing here with an international coalition led by the US. So it is not just the US. You can be surprised that that thing will be extended to other countries like Canada, like England, France, and all that. So it is better for these people to cooperate and to see to it that peace returns very fast. And all those who have been fanning this conflict from behind, please, a word to a wise man is enough. So try and play your own quota so that peace returns, because if it does not return and you are targeted, well, as I will say, it's just the beginning, eh?
Yeah, but if this is, it is actually effective as we speak, whoever is involved in the war as we speak now, it is, they are already being targeted by the US. Yes, but how is it going to affect them?
Well, it will affect them in the sense that if you leave, you have to leave Cameroon to go out of Cameroon. Then you realize that you cannot do so. Because, for instance, okay, look at Europe. They have the Schengen visa. So if the US is in accord with the Europeans, then you cannot enter even Europe. Canada is the same thing. You see, so don't think that because you are not going to USA, you are not concerned. No. If they extend it to Europe, you are finished. Or Australia, because they are all the same people.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add to what he's saying, you know. If you look at it, like talk about the measures, we have quite other measures that are coming on board, as I said earlier, with the steps. That's the first step of the visa restriction. We know the other one that will come now has to do with freezing of the accounts wherever they are, because they are currently working on them, and they have cited a handful of them. You know, the irony in the whole issue is that if you look at the regime, for example, the regime in Yaoundé, more than 90% of them, their accounts and their assets are out there, are not even in the country. As I speak now, the United Nations, that is what they call the State House, as of now, the Foreign Committee, is currently meeting as we speak. And the Cameroon's ambassador to the US is there now on hearing, as we speak, as I'm talking to you now. It's ongoing. And which means that they are giving him, they are discussing, because he has to take commitments after this hearing this night, which continues to put into effect the visa restriction, which has been announced already, because it has been enacted already. It is already in motion. So you could imagine what we're saying here, that while we are talking here, full action is in place as I speak. And that's why I said that if you look at the whole gimmicks coming around, it tells you that all what have been taking place for the past years, in terms of Congress, the foreign committees sitting and all the like, this is the result that we find here. Now you realize here that from all what has been taking place, it becomes imperative that after this hearing, now, and briefings that will be given with instructions to the US ambassador to Cameroon, who is new, you have now to come now and begin to ensure the implementation vis-a-vis his homeland, that is US of A, and the government. So you discover that as the hearing is going on, we are now saying, like what Barrister said, that you need to get the blanket because the colder days are still ahead, and this is the reality. Yeah, but I know that Yaoundé understands that they should be briefed.
Also, they are also most of these guys have what they call the international passport.
I was almost coming to another
passport. Would they really need to go to the US embassy to travel?
Of course. No, they will still need, so long as. Okay. Maybe Barrister comes in before I come in.
Yeah, Mr. Leo, you see,
you have an international passport. What happens?
Well, if you have international passport, there are many ways of catching a rat. They said they're talking of visa restrictions. They say visa restrictions.
Yes.
They are not only which one, because there is something we are losing sight of here. We are looking at the individuals. But let me assure you that these people are aware that you can travel through your brother or your son or your daughter. So we were actually advised to look for the families of all these people, so that don't think that because you are not going to travel, your child can travel, sir. Don't dream of.
Yeah.
It concerns you up to second degree.
And so like Barrister is saying, if you look at the work that the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation has put in place, it does not revolve only around the key actors, as she's saying normally, because you could equally say, I try to go and do your business, carry on your business in America and come back. And so the relatives that are around you are also going to pay the price. You could imagine how heavy it will be. Now, when you look at it, Mr. Leo, another issue that I say is still going to be very complex and weighing more on the side of the regime is that if you look at, like, for those who are in the diaspora, now you understand that most of them have dual nationalities. Now, if you realize, Mr. Leo, the truth is that America has a policy, of course, Apostle Ambe mentioned part of it here, that is to defend the interest of their citizens. Now, the truth in it is that if you look at it, those who have American nationality, because I had got the other day some of the persons ranting in Yaoundé and CPDM psychophants, so to say, of course saying that they'll be deported. Now you have what they call extradition treaty. Now in extradition treaty, in the international relations and international law, when a country where you are residing realizes that if there are evidence that sending you back to the country that is requesting extradition, you will not get a fair trial, they will prefer to, they can keep you there and prefer to get your files to be sent over and your trial, which means that in a case where it concerns this current crisis, Mr. Leo, U.S. under normal condition cannot deport, especially those kind of category of persons, because they understand that the aspect of fair trial and hearing will not be into place. This is
okay.
Let
me take this one from Ochiba Nelson. Oh, you have something to add?
Yes, I want to queue up with him because you see, we have so many cases, reported cases of Nsala law firm taking known Cameroonians to court and asking on charges of terrorism. And the US, the courts came out clearly and told them that these people are not considered terrorists in America. They are freedom fighters and not terrorists. So you see, the prospect of any person dreaming that any of those guys can be deported,
okay. Hello, Mr. Cook.
It's as slim as a blade.
Okay. Yeah, but the US wants the conflict to end.
Let's forget deportation.
Wherever you stand now.
Let's forget deportation. It's out of question.
Yeah, but wherever you stand,
none of them is considered terrorists in America.
Wherever you stand, if you are found guilty of encouraging the war, you are going to be receiving the strong, yeah. Hello, Mr. Kum. I'm following your program live. This is Ochiba Nelson, writing from the United States. I'm following your program live. I think the USA stated they are implementing visa restrictions on those who don't want a peaceful resolution, not those promoting violence. Yes, those who do not want peaceful resolution are the ones promoting the violence we are undergoing. First, identify the peaceful resolution the USA is referring to here. Remember, everyone has said the national dialogue has failed and the world knows about it. The only platform for a peaceful resolution that the USA and other major countries have endorsed is the Swiss talks. This is where they believe both parties should meet and discuss the root causes. There are those in Yaoundé who want it, whereas others don't want. Some in Yaoundé want the war to continue, others believe it's an internal affair, whereas others say let them go for an inclusive dialogue without preconditions out of Africa. On the side of Ambazonians, those who are against Swiss talks, you're mentioning names, I will not read them, and have been, I don't want to get into your politics, and have been holding back door talks with the government. Therefore, visa restrictions shall apply to both the Yaoundé ministers and some Ambazonian leaders undermining the Swiss talks. That is Ochiba Nelson. The message is quite long. Is that not also the problem where even amongst the ranks of either the government, there are persons who would want to see dialogue hold, meanwhile there are others who are not interested in it, and in the ranks of the separatists also, we have a lot of factions.
Isalu, a while ago, I'm sure you asked a question before coming to that, these people have diplomatic or international passport, but there's something that pertains when you enter a country. When you get to the airport, there's a sign in, like if you have to leave Douala Airport, you have to take your fingerprint and you sign in there in Douala Airport, and when you arrive at that nation, the immigration checks you. Now, if you have a visa restriction, they will deport you. They will deport you. Hey, there's no way. There are no two ways. So whether you have international passport or you don't have international passport, you must stop at the airport for checking. Now, to your question, as far as the divisibility or the division is concerned, to those who say, I stand for Swiss talk, those who say I don't stand for Swiss talk, those who come on government who says I stand for dialogue, those who say no, let's not dialogue. The US made it clear that there will be actions. Action will be taken against these people. Now, the action is not only visa restriction. I hear people like you ask a question that people are saying that I will not travel to US in the next 5 years. They should pray that US should not sanction Cameroon, the state of Cameroon as a state. Because if Cameroon is sanctioned as a state, all those companies that generate money from US stock exchange market who are based in Cameroon will not generate those money. That's a fact. Because if you are generating money, if you have a company in Cameroon that's generating money for US exchange market, you will not first. Secondly, all partners companies that exist in Cameroon that generate money through channels that are based in the United States or out of the United States but controlled by the United States. For example, if US has 10 companies in England or in France that your company liaises with for business, and Cameroon as a state is sanctioned, just know that all those agreements that you have signed will be suspended.
Yeah, but American investments are also in Cameroon.
No, I'm coming. No, I'm coming. Remember that. No, let me come, Mr. Yo. When they sanction you, they are not sanctioning you because they feel like they don't have investment. But the issue is the way their investment level. Who needs who more? That's the question. How much US is pumping for Cameroon to fight HIV? Huge. How much the US is pumping for Cameroon to fight terrorism? Huge. How much US is pumping for Cameroon to elevate poverty? Huge. How much US is pumping for Cameroon to fight gender-based violence? Huge. How much is Cameroon? Okay. So, based on all this...
You're not answering my question.
No, I want to...
No. My question is, in the side of the government, it is very clear. We saw the Prime Minister...
I was just reacting to...
No, we have time now. Others have to talk.
I was just reacting to some of the questions.
Others have to talk now. As a question, you're saying something else. Let Apostle look at it. I'm saying that in the ranks, in the government ranks, we have seen a move that was taken to discuss with Ayuk Tabi and the rest, and many persons actually acclaimed that move, and the minister came out to say, no, we do not endorse, nothing like that took place. And even in the ranks of the separatists, there seems to be so much division to see that on both sides there are people who are actually stifling any initiative that seeks to bring both sides to the table.
Yes, that's one of the reasons, I'm sure, from what is written there. Any person who is promoting violence in Cameroon, it should be spelled out. It means within the ranks of the government, there are individuals who do not even want any peaceful resolution. There is a camp that doesn't even want dialogue. And there is another camp in the government rank that wants dialogue. And there is a clash between these two camps within the government rank. And that is the reason why things are getting more difficult. Going to the side of the separatists, there are persons also who are initiating the peace, the Swiss talks. And within them, in the cycle of the separatists, there are also persons who do not want the Swiss talks. So there is a clash amongst these two persons. Now, the US is coming in, I believe, is to, how do I put it, to dissolve this
different factions.
Yes, to clear this faction, yes, to clear everything, and then say, okay, since you guys don't want, this is what we are bringing right now. Because the government stands for, we want to discuss with preconditions. And the separatists say, we do not want any preconditions. That particular sector has been squashed by the US by saying that it is dialogue without preconditions. In other words, we are not asking your opinion in this particular case anymore. We've given you sufficient time to manage things. You have been rigmaroling, you've been dancing. 5 years running, people are dying, schools are not going on, individuals are maimed,
the economy is dying down.
The economy is dying down, people are refugees, others are internally displaced, the whole system is in chaos. Northwest and Southwest is turning into something else. We have given you 5 consecutive years. The world has seen how our Congress wrote to you people. Your parliament wrote back in response to our Congress. The people have all seen how our Senate wrote. We sent our US Undersecretary of State for Africa. He came there and tried to negotiate things. Other bodies like Francophonie has come, the Commonwealth has come, United Nations Secretary General has come to Cameroon. We also enough is enough. Yes, so we have given you enough avenues to handle this thing at the level of a family. Since you have proven to us that you are not mature enough to handle things by yourselves, we have decided to step into as a body to give you the counsel and the direction you do not want. So they are coming in right now to make sure that all this infighting among separatists, who wants this, we will not ask what you want anymore. We are not interested in what you want. Whether government want this or the separatists want this, we are not interested. Because this your infighting for many years has been dragging the war, prolonging it, and innocent masses are dying. So we have come down to mellow down all your factions and all your thoughts. We are coming with our own right now. First thing is that we are restricting visa to all those who are carrying out or pushing this thing. Secondly, we want a dialogue without precondition. The only opportunity they have given to people right now is that you still decide that dialogue. If you delay in organizing this dialogue as individuals or as a community, we will come there, choose where you will organize this dialogue, and we will force you on the table to do what we want. Since you don't want to act as a mature person, we will treat you as a child.
Yeah, but what should, if that's the official position of the government, saying that of the United States, we want dialogue without preconditions, what should be the work that has to be engaged on both sides now?
Well, you see, Mr. Leo, like we had said, when the dialogue kicks off, you see, everything has been prepared there, and the CDN has taken care of everything. I think what the US is simply doing now is just clearing the table, as Apostle Nambe said, clearing the table so that, and then giving the parties some period of grace again for them to sit on their own and see whether they can batter things out. If they cannot, then what has been prepared for them will be put on the table. And I don't see how there will be any chance for anybody to dodge.
Yeah, when we say what has been prepared for them, what else?
Genuine dialogue, sir.
This is already
genuine dialogue.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
with the addressing of all the issues. We have to address all the issues without fear or favor.
Senior Barrister, I'm
yes,
saying that this already is a sanction that has been put out there on persons who are actually struggling to pertain.
This is just
what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
This is already sanctioned. If another time of grace is accorded both sides to fix themselves and be disposed to talk, are we going to see another wave of sanctions?
Of course.
Yeah.
But I referred you to 684. If you go through, you will see that those sanctions have been graduated, and we know that economic sanctions are coming. And as I was saying, they should get their blanket, because the days ahead are going to be colder. The more resistance they put, the more sanctions they are going to face. That's the thing. The language is clear. So this one is just warming up. We're not going to anywhere with this. It's warming up.
Okay.
If they continue resisting and they don't want to organize the peace talks, they will get further sanctions. And like Tao was saying here, it can even include economic sanctions. You know, those sanctions can go even right up to medication. Not just your money, it can even go up to medication. And if international community is involved, we shall be in serious trouble.
We shall be in serious trouble. It says that this decision reflects our commitment to advance a dialogue to peacefully resolve the Anglophone crisis and support respect for human rights. What dialogue is the United States talking about? Is there a dialogue already? Or they are talking that they want to advance the already held a major national dialogue?
No, major national dialogue is a kangaroo one. Anybody who dreams, you want to hear me very well, anybody who dreams, I mean, just by imagining that phony kangaroo thing that they called that national dialogue in Yaoundé was a dialogue, that person should be insane. Now, Mr. Leo, what simply the U.S. is saying here is simple, that there should be a little way for a genuine dialogue. Of course, you know, CDN, we have done our job already, and currently now we are talking with the separatist leaders, as we speak, the restoration leaders, as of now, to also ensure that they come to an understanding of probably another aspect which could also push them to get into dialogue when the time comes. Well, as that is also concerned, you realize that as a two-way factor, CDN is in a move, just like any other organization, because we are not saying that we are the ones who have the monopoly for all the transactions. We are saying that there are many persons who are equally in the move, ensuring that things move well for peace to return in these two regions. Now, if you look at what they're talking about there with the U.S., the aspect of committing, the simple thing is that they are simply sending the message that the groundwork should be put in place. Now, Mr. Leo, the main thing here is that they are not the one deciding the lives of that. They are still making us to understand that we still have a chance, which means the parties involved still have a chance to make haywire sunshine as far as getting a genuine dialogue that will bring to an end the current quagmire we find ourselves. It therefore implies, as per that statement, that if at a point in time this particular time is given and no effort is done, then other means will come into place that will force both parties involved in the conflict to must come to table. As a matter of fact, you realize that in the procedures all along, all we are making people to understand is that if the U.S. is already on here, and we look at the current hearing of the U.S. ambassador to Cameroon as we speak now, it still tells you that more. Of course, the statement has already come out. A statement has already been issued just about 3-4 seconds ago, now as I speak, which we will still make it public to the people, to the viewers in a short while, because we're currently following right now. And of course, as I said earlier, the CDN, we are currently on course on the ground in the US to follow these developments and bring them back to the people. So our intention as men, as we say, is not because we have any interest in our policy, is that we just want to see that the parties involved get to dialogue, so that when they get to dialogue, at the end of it, the killings will stop. But unfortunately, anybody who plays tough will hear in the days ahead.
Greetings, Mr. Leo. When you say the U.S. places visa restrictions on violence promoters, please, do they know the violence promoters? If yes, who are those promoting the violence? Tambe, Alex, yes. Can you take a decision without aptly acknowledging or identifying those involved? Because as we speak, there are restrictions On? No, for him. The restrictions are on. Would you place restrictions for persons you don't know?
Remember that before this, there was the AGOA Act that was taken against Cameroon. So US has a long history about this conflict. They have the intelligence services. They have social media that they gather data from. They have a conventional media, as we are talking here now, and reporting on news stories. They have friends who are working. They have the embassies that are here. They have missions. They have missions that they support. Like we have other NGOs, international NGOs that work on the field that give them full report on a daily basis. So they have all these figures. You want to apply and you say on your passport, sorry, you are not promoting, you are not pushing for peaceful resolution and Anglophone crisis, so we are not promoting violence. Yeah, you are promoting violence. So violence are in different forms. There's direct violence, in structural violence, and there's cultural violence. So in different forms as far as the Anglophone crisis is concerned. Those refusing kids from going to school, those promoting ghost town and saying this, that, those promoting chiefs who are killed. When chiefs are killed, you are saying yes, thank God they are killed, they are this, that. A whole lot of issues. Remember that the social media itself is a data conversion center. So whatever we have been posting on our individual Facebook pages, Twitter account, and the rest, they have their own way to interpret their violence. It may not be our own way. We may feel like maybe our own way of promoting violence is saying that, hey, go and kill this. No. Maybe when you share a post of certain thing to them based on their criteria, because they have not defined what they consider as violence as far as limiting visa is concerned. So it's a big web. And people should be very careful. It's a big web. People should be very careful. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to everyone in the house. Mr. Liu, we thank God for this statement. It sounds more serious. God will favor us this time around. Esther is writing from Yaoundé. Mo also writing from Yaoundé says, good evening, Mr. Liu, and Mo from Yaoundé. I think the USA is not serious to intervene in solving this crisis. They have all the means to do so, but keep playing around. Yes, that is how Cameroonians actually consider the US today. Some say they are going to be serious. Others say, but they have been making these statements for so long now.
Mr. Liu, there are governments that when they come in power, you understand their mode of operation. Okay. Tony Blinken's speech, during his inaugural speech as Secretary of State for the United States of America, pointed these issues. He pointed Tigray, he pointed Uganda, he pointed Cameroon. And I can tell you so far, actions have been taken against these three particular nations. There are restrictions of visas in Tigray, and names were mentioned in Uganda and equally Cameroon. And that is to tell you that not every leader has the same modus operandi.
Okay.
Not every leader has the same modus operandi. A lot of people don't seem to understand diplomacy. Diplomacy does not operate the way you want it. It is very, very patient. It is very, very patient. So we should be very careful. When you see when the New Zealand came to solve the Bougainville crisis, Australia had manipulated things, just like what France has been doing to the Southern Cameroon case. Australia even went as far as aiding the people of Papua New Guinea to make sure they silenced the poor of Bougainville. It did not succeed. They brought confusion in the midst of the separatists in Bougainville. The separatists unintended later on came back to their senses, assembled themselves together, and then faced the people of Papua New Guinea. The United Nations came there and made that Bougainville as a UN trust territory. It did not still solve the problem. It was New Zealand that came from nowhere. Now, you will know that before they went for a referendum, that they voted 98% in favor of secession. I'm sure the poor Papua New Guinea said earlier that they don't want to hear anything like referendum. Just like the government of Cameroon said, we don't want to hear anything like conditions or this form of state federation. We don't want to hear secession. But at the end of the day, it was a single nation, New Zealand, that came on the table and dragged the two parties into a dialogue. And then now they were forced to even go for a referendum, something that if they had given the special status to these guys of Bougainville, they would not have come to the place of voting for a referendum. So I'm telling us to understand that this should be the last straw that will put the Kmer's back. The Cameroon government should know very well that at the level of things right now is no longer a hide and seek affair. Things are getting very serious. Know that background works have been taking place for so many years. I mean, almost 2 to 3 years now. People have been working on the ground. We belong to the coalition with the dialogue and negotiation. We know the kind of what have been going on ground. Many ambassadors and many ministers and many presidents of other countries have been consulted, and things are going on ground. If you see US coming with this statement, it is a statement that has a root. If you want to go and trace the root of this statement, let me just begin to watch how the drama unfolds, because
I want all of us to react to the end of that statement. It says that this decision reflects our commitment to advance a dialogue to peacefully resolving the Anglophone crisis and support respect for human rights. The United States strongly supports the Cameroonian people, and we remain committed to working together to advance democracy and mutual prosperity for both our countries. That is, the United States and Cameroon supports the Cameroonian people. What reading do you make out of this last statement?
Well, the statement is very clear. The United States is not supporting Cameroon government, because in this particular crisis, is a crisis that concerns the people, the Cameroonians. So let's say we support the Cameroon people. We want people to understand that they're not taking sides. They're supporting the Cameroonians as a whole, not taking sides with either the government or the separatists. So they're supporting the Cameroon people or the interests of the people of Cameroon. That's what we make of it. Mr. Leo, you see, when we have this type of complex situations coming up, I think it is time for us. We said earlier that the U.S. seems to be giving a period of grace for the people to do something. On this your platform, sometime you mentioned it. Can you people here not come up as mediators? I think it is time. This is the time now. We have a period of grace. This is time for some Cameroonians to come up of goodwill. If they are capable of acting as mediators, well, let us
engaging both sides.
Yes, why not? Let us see if we can have local efforts at mediation. Let us, if we can come up with a local team to mediate. You challenge me sometimes. Say, well, why not you? Yes, I am not alone. There are other people who can also do it. Well, unfortunately, I'm a member of CDN, so I cannot isolate myself.
Yeah, but the CDN can. What's up?
If you are putting me there, then you are putting the CDN into the race. Well, we can put the question to the CDN if he can take the challenge. But as we said, CDN had already prepared the platform. The platform is prepared. So any person who comes up with any viable negotiation attempt will be supported by the CDN work. They provide that platform which will enable the talks to go scotch-free. You see, so I think this is time for us, Cameroonians of goodwill, both at home and abroad, to come up and see whether we can help the parties to have some form of arrangement.
But talking of sanctions, if the United States were to sanction Cameroon, actually, who suffers? Is it the state officials or is the population? Because you are talking about economic sanctions and the like. Who is going to suffer? It's the population. And the United States says we strongly support the Cameroonian people and we remain committed to working together to advance democracy.
Yeah, the statement is very clear. Just like Senior Barrister said earlier, if you hear they're not talking about support the Cameroonian government, but the people, Cameroonian people. Now, if sanctions are to go on, there's what they call targeted sanctions, which means you don't make it at random, but it is carefully worked out in such a way that it goes on those who are supposed to pick up the sanctions. So in this case, for example, if you are a government official or maybe a key actor in the conflict and you don't want it to end, and probably you have relatives around you, they will obviously suffer. Then you have an investment in Europe and things like that, or you have an account in wherever the sanction is coming from, which is frozen. You discover that the first thing is that you are the main person who is directly involved with feeling the pinch and the pain of the said sanction. Then your relatives around could equally come, but not that we'll talk about targeted sanction. It means that it's carefully done in such a way that the population does not suffer from that kind of sanction. Now, this kind of sanction is different from what we call state sanction. because state sanction, they give it in such a way that it affects the entire economy. And for state sanctions, they simply come in a way to weaken the power of the state, because you know, in any government, what gives you the power is financial viability. The moment you are not buoyant, you are not buoyant financially, you discover that you might have problems paying your workers, you might have problems carrying out some projects, which will even cause the people to revolve against you. So in this case here, we're not talking about state sanctions. That's why that statement, you are really saying something. We look at it to the Cameroonian people. I repeat, Cameroonian people should listen very well.
The United States strongly supports the Cameroonian people. And we remain committed to working together to advance democracy and mutual prosperity for both countries. We are talking about Cameroonian people, and we are working for the prosperity of the nation. But now, should we impose economic sanctions on the nation?
No, it would
that is going to undermine the prosperity.
Yes. Yeah, it would obviously undermine. That's what I said. U.S. That's why I said U.S. is not as of now for what you call state sanction. If you look at that statement, that's why I said their concern is to safeguard the interests of the Cameroonian people.
Those involved
in it. So it will be targeted. Those who are involved. I said the list is already there. Don't mind as we are getting drama here, talking up and down. Everything has been carefully worked out. I mean, carefully worked out. And those concerned understand that trouble is already around the corner. As I said earlier, as I said, in less than 48 hours ago, there have quite been a handful of lobbying to make sure that they get things turned around in the U.S. But you know, U.S. not like Cameroon. Now, if you look at it, with extradition treaties and others, as I said, if you are not a party to it, the other procedures follow. It's not like what you find in Nigeria, where Ayuk Tabe Seko, they were ferried when Cameroon does not have official extradition treaty with Nigeria, and it went like that. But if it comes to America and democratic countries, it's a whole lot of procedures. And then it gets complex again. If those persons again have nationalities of those respective countries, it becomes doubly complex, such that if you want to realize, Mr. Leo, if some of these state, separatist leaders are concerned, if they have to go in for, don't be surprised that they might even be tried, but in the respective countries are not even, they will not even see Cameroon. Okay. So at the end of it, justice will be in a way that even those who sing songs in Yaoundé are already, they are already getting they are already feeling the rhythm of the dance as I speak.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and your wonderful cream of panelists. And Neo would not allow me to enjoy the program. Thumbs up, gentlemen. I'm just praying for you to come to pass and let peace return to this country, especially in the Anglophone regions. Daisy is writing from Kumba. Good evening, Mr. Liu, Apostle Ambe, and all our fellow viewers. I'm Tiku writing from Cyprus. This is a statement by the U.S. shows that there is a big fire on the ground, and we should be expecting a food outcome in less than no time. Now, thank you. Thank you, too. This one says, hello, Mr. Liu. I'm John from Germany, who voted for Ayuk Tabe, who decides who are involved in the so-called both sides. Has the U.S. solved any problem before? Your panelists should be realistic. Sanctions affect only the poor. Mr. Liu, are your panelists free from the visa sanctions? I'm sure.
I'll answer, yeah? I'm free.
He said that already, yeah.
We are free.
Pastor Derek, watching from Limbe, he was here yesterday. He was here yesterday. He says, good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. What if the individual names are made known today by the USA and the government decides and replace all of them and appoints new ones? Are we not back to square one? Derek is right, Pastor Derek. Yeah. That's also a smart one there from a man of God. Good evening, Mr. Liu and other panelists. Good evening, Mr. Liu and other panelists in the studio. I learned a lot from the program. Nkong Wilson Bankse writing all the way from the far north, precisely in Mokolo. Good evening to you. Hello, Mr. Leo. And the panelists, this is Branson from Finland. This is an interesting topic. You guys have to understand that the separatists are the ones who initiated the Swiss talks and were ready and were fully engaged. But the government of Cameroon did not, and the separatists cannot force Cameroon government. Tamaya Jean-Claude says, good evening, Mr. Liu and all the panelists on board. I now believe what Dr. Nick says about the crystal ball. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Some of your panelists supported violence in the Anglophone regions, but maybe have forgotten so fast they can reflect. Mola Fako is writing from Limbe. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu and all of you in the studio. I'm happy for the United States for doing that. It may be the solution to the problem. It's Desi writing from Wututu, that's in Limbe. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to all the panelists. The program is very interesting. If Mr. Kedia doesn't want, okay, Mr. Kedia is not here today. Okay, Chris from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Kum, and the wonderful panelists. Self-defense and determination, not wanting peace, are two different things. No Southern Cameroonian is refusing. Okay, is refusing way of dialogue. Cameroon government on our part has already designed its way to end the war. Eventually, the government is the one hindering the peace. Yes, I don't know. Who's talking? Is you?
No, it's you.
Yes. Now, is the United States siding with the Cameroonian government when they say we are with the Cameroon people? We are going to promote democracy, advance democracy, and mutual prosperity for both countries.
The U.S. respect conventions.
Is diplomatic language?
Diplomatic language, yes, and respect of the principle of territoriality.
Okay.
Cameroon as a state, you cannot directly make a judgment against a state affairs. Yes, you can influence that state, but Cameroon, first of all, is a state. Secondly, when they say the state of Cameroon, at this point in time, let's be clear, international law recognizes Cameroon as a state, and the separatist battle, they are still fighting. So they cannot say the people of Saudi, they cannot take Southern Cameroon. No, even if it's a state, but they will not openly. No, it's internationally recognized. You are saying so, but they will not come and say Southern Cameroon. Is he a member of the Security Council? No. Is he a member of the United Nations? No. Southern Cameroon is not a member of the United Nations. States are members of the United Nations. Is he a member of the African Union? No. At this point in time, it's still. If it was a state, yes.
No, let me correct that. There are many states. There are states on earth that are not part of the United Nations. Doesn't make them not being states.
At this point, no. At this point,
you are not qualified as a state because you are part of the UN.
Apostle, at this point in time, the US will not side with Southern Cameroon.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to correct you that you must not be a part of the United Nations to be a state.
Let me answer this question. His question is not citing with Cameroon government per se, but it's respecting the boundaries governing the United Nations. He is part of the United Nations, and they are respecting the boundaries. But however, they are telling Cameroon government that there is a possibilities where you could reduce this violence to save your people, and we are siding with the people of Cameroon and the state itself. Remember that they talked about the separatists there. The separatists there, who did they represent? They represent their ideology that the US feel like maybe it's legitimate, it's not. It depends on when they go on the table and discuss. So stating here that when I mean that they are not a state, it's not a state per se. I mean that if we go by the US way the US see it, it's different from your way, Apostle. It's different from my way. We will not force our way from the US. Even those who are insulting us will not force their own way, how we look at things. The US see Cameroon as a state bound by convention, and see the Southern Cameroon as a struggle now, which is within Cameroon. So you will not force them to say because it is a state is bound by this, that, it's a state. No, I'm reacting based on a US ideology. So you are not correcting me on US ideology. I'm reacting on US ideology, not my ideology.
Yeah, because the statement reads that the conflicts in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon.
It's not me, it's US.
Yeah, the US, that's what the US is saying. It's talking about the US, the Anglophone regions in Cameroon. But how does this actually, what the US is saying now, how does this solve the problem? Because they want the conflicts to end. You are doing visa restrictions. How would that solve the problem?
Okay. Like we said earlier, visa restriction is just the beginning of many other things to be done. That visa restriction is like calling your attention that we have given you enough space. We are introducing this restriction to let you understand that if you don't take your stand and do what we have been agitating or advocating for the past years, we're going to step further to put you under more serious discipline. When you Americans say we are there to promote democracy, it's a very serious statement, because that democracy is actually giving a people's right. One of US foreign policy is to promote democracy. America may never wish Cameroon to separate, but democratically they may give people a right to choose. That's democracy. Give them the opportunity to make their decision. Give them the vote, the ballot box to decide. That's democracy. So if they come that they are promoting democracy, they may call the two persons in question and organize a referendum. I don't think New Zealand was interested in separating Bougainville from the people of Papua New Guinea. It was a policy they put in place. It was the people, because democracy is actually allowing a people make their decision. Like I said earlier once on this platform, dictatorship is when the government have the people, and democracy is when the people have the government. So if US is promoting democracy and it says it wants to advance democracy in Cameroon, they may come say, okay, you guys are fighting. In democracy, we don't go a loggerheads. We cast lots to see decision, because in democracy it is vote that decides your direction. So if they say they are coming to promote democracy in Cameroon, they may come and say, okay, according to America's foreign policy, which is to advance and promote democracy, at the level we are right now, we are dumped in between two opinions. And once we are confused, it's only the vote, the ballot box can determine. So we call on both parties now democratically to decide their direction. That's democracy. So that statement is very coded. It's very coded. Let us not just look statements from a shallow point of view. They have a lot of implications. And that's why I say democracy and diplomacy is something that it has no map. It has no map, because every statement has its interpretation. That simple word that America is there to advance democracy. Cameroon might not
democracy and mutual prosperity.
Mutual prosperity
for both countries.
For both democracy and mutual prosperity of both countries, which means the democratic system of America is federation. They can come to bring that democracy here. So let us just be very tactical as we hear those statements, because it is the outcome of those statements that will actually interpret it.
Yeah, but I just read a submission. I'm sure, presentation from the new U.S. ambassador to Cameroon, who is highlighting that he's taking office. He's very conscious of the fact that there are lots of challenges Cameroon is faced with. The U.S. is working with Cameroon in the Lake Chad Basin to fight the Boko Haram. It is also conscious of what is happening in our backyard, that's the Central African Republic, because we are hosting this. May this not also complicate what is happening here? Don't we also see that the United States somehow is caught in a web, because they need Cameroon to fight Boko Haram and ISIS. They need Cameroon to host refugees from fleeing Nigeria up north. They need Cameroon. They need Cameroon to guarantee security between the Douala-Bangui corridor to transport
regional balancing.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Leo.
Yeah, we are talking of geopolitics here.
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Leo, you see, I want to go back on what Mr. Jarvis was saying. When he said Southern Cameroon is not a state, I think. Please,
no point of correction.
Please, you don't correct what you don't even hear. I've never said anything. You are correcting. No. Why are you correcting? Listen to me first.
No, by US,
you had your time. Listen to me.
That is correcting me.
Oh, you don't want me to talk?
No, talk, sir.
Then you listen to me instead of talking in my place. I was saying that I don't agree with him, because I want to remind him that US. Oh my God!
US. I was talking on US.
Wonderful.
Not me. Don't paint me.
What is this now?
No, you are painting me. Paint US.
So your problem is you don't want me to talk. Is that?
No, sir. Continue. But you are painting me. You don't agree with me.
We have a moderator here. Why are you playing his role?
No, just let Senior Barrister talk, please.
He doesn't want me to talk. I am saying that Mr. Tama Jarvis is wrong to say Southern Cameroon is not a state.
And I am
let me remind you.
US, I was replying on
let me remind you.
Because people are watching, they will say that Jarvis said on the correction. I am reacting on US outing.
Yeah, but you've made a point.
You are wrong, sir. Because United States voted in Resolution 1608 that recognized Southern Cameroon independence. Let me see how you get out of that. They voted. And they voted yes. We can go to the records. You can't tell me that a state that was recognized by the United Nations, with the US vote, US will say that it's not a state. What are you talking about? It is a state with international recognition. The independence was by joining the Republic of Cameroon. You can't tell me it's not a state. Even today, go to the definition of a Cameroonian. Today, inside the definition of a Cameroonian, You are a Cameroonian because you either originate from Republic of Cameroon that got its independence on the 1st of January 1960, or from Southern Cameroon that had its independence on the 1st of October 1961. Here you are saying Southern Cameroon is a state.
By US,
Sit quiet now.
By US in Northwest.
So you have it there that Southern Cameroon is a state. Please, you don't confuse international law with diplomacy. Don't confuse the two. At diplomacy, you will not want America to say that we are the ones dividing Cameroon. This man's statement here, when you get that point, advancing democracy, look, he is talking about self-determination. Yes, he is talking about they will work when they say mutual interest. Is it, you think it's for America?
Both countries.
Oh, thank you. He's talking about Cameroon, and there are two parties in Cameroon. You're talking about both countries. Read that thing well. It is not what you are saying. Yes, I think that what you are reading there is not what this man has actually written. Because when he says both countries, you are thinking that it is between Cameroon and America. I don't think so. They are saying that they are working for the interests of Cameroon, or Cameroonians for the promotion of democracy. So is it America that is coming to vote for you? Oh, democracy, determination of the people
working together to advance democracy and prosperity for both our countries.
Who stop?
Okay, so if they are promoting democracy in Cameroon for this crisis, that has undertones of self-determination. So please, don't think that the Americans are blind. They are not. They know what they are doing.
Now, since you're a member of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiations, the premises is that there are two states, Cameroon government and the state of Southern Cameroon. Is that what you're saying?
I have said so before, and I will say so now, and I always say so. And it is clear. I look from that communication from the beginning. It is clear. There is no doubt. We are talking about two parties.
The two parties that talk about armed separatist armed groups. That's what it is.
Because there is no person who has the legal representation, the legal local standard to represent Southern Cameroon. There is nobody.
But you said it's a state.
Oh. I said nobody has been elected by anybody to represent Southern Cameroon. Have I been elected? Until start the negotiation. Excuse me. Start the negotiation.
When you say there's nobody, then who is then going to be dialoguing?
Okay, Mr. Liu.
Yes.
When you start the negotiation, you will get the person to represent Southern Cameroon.
Elections will take place. Is that what you're saying?
I told you that when you start, the platform will put in motion and you will see it. Don't bother yourself.
Once you begin,
once you begin, you will see it move, and you will see the representation.
So you are saying that Sako, Ayuk Tabe, Ayabacho, and the rest, they will see, Kwanga will see other people talk with the Cameroon government and not them? Is that what you are saying?
Who voted them to represent them?
Thank you.
No, I don't, all of us, you talked about the Swiss talks, you also talked about the Swiss talks, and now these are the persons who have gone to the Swiss talks. How can we now understand that?
We are saying that Southern Cameroonians will choose their representatives, sir. They will choose their representatives. It may be Akwanga, it may be Sako, it may be Ashu, it may be anybody. They will choose their representatives.
Now, we really need to end yeah, it's complicated, eh?
Yeah,
very complicated. But I think that the United States says they are working for the mutual prosperity for both countries, Cameroon and America. They said it very clearly that the United States strongly supports the Cameroonian people, and it says that the United States is deeply concerned by the continued violence in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon. We continue to call for both the separatist armed groups to end the violence and engage in a dialogue without preconditions to peacefully resolve the crisis. How do we get to this now?
Well, if we are talking about resolving the crisis, I guess that's what you're asking already. I think in resolving the crisis, we peacefully. We have been singing this song here for the past 5 years, and it has been falling on deaf ears. The simple way to get out of the crisis, as we said, is just to respect the principles of conflict resolution. There are no two ways, which means that adding to what the US is putting in place, that is unconditional, that which means without preconditions, it tells you that it's part of the dialogue already. So which means that the aspect of getting to the end of the conflict will obviously be, one, for both parties to decide on a neutral ground accepted by all of them. Two, for both parties to decide on a mediator accepted by both of them, and not one party dictating who should be a mediator. Three, if this is done, then it will be now on them, on the neutral ground, which will be accepted, because the neutral ground is very, very important, Mr. Leo. You cannot be telling me that you call a meeting in Yaoundé and you want a separatist leader to come to Yaoundé when you are planning to catch them and lock, and you tell me that you are calling for national dialogue, which is a farce. Now, when you put all of these things in place, you realize now that in the course of all of this now, when the mediator comes in, now the agenda of the dialogue now will now be set in, which must be known by both parties. And as I said in the agenda, it means that you come with the fact that you want separation, the other man will say that I don't want separation. All of those things should be accepted and put on the table. Now, in the course of all of this, you now realize that all in all, there are other things that have to put in place, logistical movements to ensure that parties that are supposed to be there are supposed to be chosen by the two parties as far as their representatives are concerned. Now, when this is done, Mr. Leo, you realize that it will be the leeway. Now, in the course of the dialogue, because dialogue is a process. Now, you cannot take a dialogue, for example, program in Ghana, I moved after 1 day, peace returns. No, it is a process. But the first phase of that process, of that process needs to be arrived at. That is what we're saying. That will be the first step in solving this current crisis. So once that is done, you realize that in the course of getting in now, you have now what they call committees of reconciliation and reconstruction. That's when all those things that you have to talk about reconstruction now comes with the DDR. All what they're doing, that they are only singing a song. And to let you know, Mr. Leo, that in all what we're talking here, Yaoundé feels the peace because this is the first time the topic on the Anglophone crisis will be discussed at the Parliament. It's on subject, this June session, as I speak now. Fire there for their last. Okay. They all go for sleep now to discuss the issue. They have not seen anything yet, though. They can't get a system in Yaoundé.
Cameroon also is our position also very key or fundamental in the way the United States would want to, whatever nation would want to intervene here, given what is happening in the sub-region.
Remember that Cameroon is host to, first of all, is regarded as the stable nation that most of the international, most of the Western nations like US, Britain use to fight terrorism in northern Cameroon, in Nigeria, used also in Central African Republic, and also to monitor what's happening in Chad. And so remember, US is fighting home-based terrorism in all these areas: Chad, Mali, Central African Republic. So in the context where Cameroon finds itself, it's difficult for the United States to take a stand. The US can only push both parties on the table to see how they can resolve it. US is taking them in what we call in conflict resolution as a balcony position, to take them to focus now on interest and not on position. Cameroon government is saying that I want decentralization. Separatists are saying we want separation. Federalists are saying we want federation. So it's taking them to the balcony position that, okay, go and talk, have this talk on the table, and you should decide your future. That we don't want to decide your future for you, but you guys must decide your future, because if you don't, we will impose some of this, that's what they're doing. And based on this, Mr. Leo, briefly, I want to state here that Southern Cameroon can be a state, but as of now, in principle, it's part of Cameroon. That's why it's not a Southwest region. Let's get that clear. There's not, it can be a state in principle, but in fact and reality, it's part of Cameroon. So yes, US voted, but it's part of Cameroon, and it's Cameroon at this point in time. That's what we call North and Southwest region. So in that context, the US is referring to the fact as it is. The reason why these parties should go on the table, first, they should look at the interests of the common man. The common government is saying they want to protect lives and properties. The separatists are saying they want to protect lives and properties. The federalists are saying federation will protect lives and properties. All of these people, you see, they have one area they agree. They want to protect life and properties. The separatists will tell you want our kids to go to school under a good condition. Common government says decentralization will give you a better way our kids will go to school. The federalists are saying the same thing. It means they agree now on the second position. We want school. The next issue is where are they disagreeing? They are disagreeing now on their positions. Now, if they keep their positions away and look at the interest now of the person in Furawa, the person in Furawa, the person in Abokunjaman, the person in Wova, the person in Mamu, if you look at the interest of that person just wants to see that he has democracy, he has freedom of speech, he has a right to select their leaders. All of them have different positions.
We're out of time. We already are aware of what is happening in the Central African sub-region. We not only here, we saw what Russia did in Syria. In Syria, when America was there, and in our backyard of Central African Republic, we see what Russia is doing because of France. The Russia-China effects may we see it playing out in Cameroon also, should America want to use a stronger arm in coming in to resolve this problem.
Well, that's diplomacy, Mr. Leo. The truth is, United Nations doesn't play with two countries in the world, Cameroon and Canada, because of their linguistic background. United Nations use these two countries a lot in their diplomatic missions. And that's the reason why, if I tell you the United Nations are not interested in the secession of this country, it's because of that reason. They know that the bilingual nature of these two nations influences their diplomatic activities in most countries in the world, since most countries either speak English or French. Getting people who are bilingual, they have good instruments in the hands of the United Nations. And that's the reason why, no matter how we beat ourselves to the right and to the left, the United Nations has been very, very quiet. Now, broken out of that block of United Nations, we have the G5, the Great Five. We have Russia, we have China, we have Britain, we have France, we have America. Now, if you look at it critically, the two persons who are not in collaboration with the other parties is Russia and China. Yeah. Now, France in this case happens to be in between the armor and the anvil. Why? Because France's interest in this country should not be jeopardized by America. So you discover that if China and America and Russia are interested in keeping Cameroon, and then America wants to intervene to break, France will totally take side, which makes it 3. And 3 now, if they are going to go on a vote, because when things don't go among the fight very well, is vote. When they go on a vote, Britain is the person that can join America. France will definitely join these other parties together, but it will not go at the Security Council. They will not handle it as individuals, because if you look at it, even though they are the Great Five, Russia is kicking against America, France, right, in Central African Republic. Yeah. Now, France, in technical sense, has lost Central African Republic and lost Syria.
And America, because America was also there in Syria.
Yeah, they have lost Syria. Now, France is gradually losing Mali. The truth is, we don't know yet which country is behind Mali's consistent and persistent resistance. Today, forces were denied entry into Bamako by the Malian population. Malian population denied France's military from entering into Bamako today. They block the roads everywhere. They don't want France in their country. 2 coups d'etats occur under the influence of Assimi Goïta, who happens to be the interim or transition president right now. If Russia creeps into Mali, you will discover that France is gradually, the empire of France is gradually collapsing and crumbling in Africa. Now, if at all Russia develops interest in Cameroon, then we are in for a third world war. Because America's approach, from all indication, if we can read the clock, is gearing towards secession. Meanwhile, if Russia comes in, Russia might not go in for secession. There will be a clash. Russia and China. Because why? China has huge interest in this country. And China's interest is not limited to one region of the country. China is spread like a locust in this country. And definitely you and I know China's position as far as the crisis has been. That's diplomacy we are talking right now. So I think what the US is doing, but the US I know has a certain level of influence that they can shut down China and Russia.
Okay, definitely we have to end at this juncture. It's time we say thank you to you, Senior Barrister, except you had something to add.
Thank you, Mr. Leo, for inviting me today. I just want to say that the American interests in Cameroon are bigger than meet the eye. Because let's remember that they have Cameroon harbors the biggest U.S. embassy in Africa. It's not for nothing. In addition to all the missions that Mr. Tamai cited, there is the U.S. mission guarding the Gulf of Guinea. The military mission guarding the Gulf of Guinea.
Africa, man.
So there is that one, and then let's not forget that they have always been eyeing the that Gulf of Guinea to install a container terminal. So business is their food. So well, they might not be siding with one side, but I don't think that they want to stay out. And then you see, Americans, they have so many tentacles in Cameroon. They have so many tentacles. They used to have some. Well, anyway, those are not things to be said on air. Okay, but they are militarily very present. They are militarily very present, and we should not fool ourselves. It's not because they are not vocal, but they are very present here. You have the USAID, you have the Peace Corps, you have. In fact, they are present.
But I'm not sure the US would want to engage in a physical presence in Cameroon. We have severally talked about international involvement in Africa, and we know the outcome. Let us hope that the persons to whom this statement is addressed sit up and
wake up. Let them wake up.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you very much. And as the Kangaroo Parliament puts this agenda on their table, there is nothing that U.S. is a fool, because circumstances forced them. Just the circumstance forced them to go in for the COVID investigation or the like. So this time around, it's not going to be business as usual. Greetings to Mamia Tanga, Elizabeth, who is watching us from Boya, Azingwa in Pendamboko, and Deco Mondial for Mondial Express in Kumba. They are all good fans who are watching us live as we speak. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you too for you, Tamai Jarvis, for coming.
Thank you. Good evening to the Minister of Public Work. Good evening to the people of Baba Juhud. Good evening, Yaoundé. Good evening, Monya.
Apostle Nambe, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. Thank you, Cameroonians. We are happy to be here. God bless you all. In Jesus' name.
We want to thank you all who took time off to watch the program this evening. It was a pleasure presenting this program, and to the production team we say thank you. Tomorrow we are going to be asking the question, what is stalling the effective takeoff of the Limbe Deep Seaport since last year, that the President of the Republic actually announced that the project was going to, something serious was going to take place 1 year after. Nothing is happening there in Limbe. Snail piece movement, so what is wrong out there? We also are going to be looking at the passport issues, moving from 75,000 francs CFA to 110,000 francs as from the 1st of July 2021. Thank you for watching. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.